businessman. The club have been given 6 months to pay £76,000 in tax arrears, and they don't have the money. Success on the field would help, but the team are third from bottom of the Football League. Manager Mick Jones has offered to work for nothing, but his chairman's problems run deeper than that.
And this week we are not in a position to pay the wages, not only of the players, but of the staff, the tea ladies, the manager, the coaches, the groundsmen, etc. I'd like to find somewhere out there that someone would want to inject some cash into Halifax Town, because I still think the club could have a great future. I shall go talk to the council, who have been very, very helpful to me in the past, but have not been in a position to help. And in one last-ditch effort, I will certainly talk once more to Calderdale Council.
And if Calderdale Council can't help and you don't get your mystery benefactor, what happens?
I'm afraid that the club will fold.
Obviously, the lads are in favour.
3 years ago, the players of Bradford City had to make public appeals for money to help the club survive a winding-up order. And in recent years, most of the other teams in our region have stared in the face the possibility of folding. All have survived, but football's great nightmare is that if one club goes under, others will follow like a deck of cards. The fear in Halifax tonight is that their club could start the fatal ball rolling.
Doctors at St James Hospital in Leeds have performed a second liver transplant.
May have to do without wages. As Bill Hanrahan reports, this isn't the first time that the club's future has been in doubt.
Big crowds are a rarity at the Shay. Seldom has the public turned out in the same numbers as on this famous occasion against Manchester United. That defeat of United was matched more recently by a win over Manchester City in the FA Cup. Again, the crowds flocked to the ground to see a memorable performance. The sporting public of Halifax have been able to see a successful team at Thrum Hall, home of the Rugby League champions. So Halifax Town, 90th in the Football League, are a poor alternative. The club has had money problems before. It nearly folded in 1981, only to be saved by millionaire Sam Rourke, who had grand ambitions.
But I can still see this as a sporting complex of the north, because it's a natural Rose Bowl here, isn't it?
But do you think that if they do drop out of the league, then
well, they won't drop out of the league. Don't worry about that.
Those ambitions, like the big crowds, are a thing of the past, as the ground and the team have continued to struggle. Today's chairman, another successful businessman, has invested thousands of pounds in Halifax Town, but now has called in an accountant to advise on the club's future.
I have to make the public of Great Britain, and particularly the Halifax Calderdale area, aware the dire straits that this club is in at this moment in time. We have no money for wages this week, and the time has come when the directors can no longer write their own cheques.
So will you close the club if he suggests it?
I will take his advice on what to do. I will take every step that I can. I'll go see the council again. I'll do everything that I can before I get that advice. But if his advice in the end is saying there is no alternative, there unfortunately is no alternative.
Halifax are once again in the re-election zone, but the club's manager is hopeful about the future.
I think I'm right in saying that the club on the football side is in the best condition it's been since probably the days of Alan Ball.
But it's third from the bottom of the Football League.
Well, that might be so. But then, like the chairman has said, I too am being strangled by all the things that have happened in the past. But when I first came to this club, they had a first team that was bottom of the 4th division. They had no youth policy whatsoever. My youth team now are beating everybody out of sight. They're at the top end of the Northern Intermediate League. If the club goes under, and let's be honest, we're in a position where that might happen, the future and all the hard work that I've put in is going to be for nothing.
Halifax Town's only assets, the ground having been sold to the council, are the floodlights. Selling them won't be enough to ensure the club's future.
It certainly didn't feel as though the last rites were being administered when Halifax scored an early goal. A lofted corner and Neil Matthews heads firmly into the net. Halifax held on to that single goal lead until half-time. And during the interval, club chairman John Madeley went on a lap of honour in front of the 1,390 fans.
There's going to be another game at the Shay. We've Scunthorpe on Sunday, which will obviously go ahead because we have a meeting a week on Wednesday. And I have a meeting with the council tomorrow with a consortium of people from London, and I'm hopeful. I'd love to save Halifax Town.
Into the second half, and 2 minutes from the end of the match, Halifax clinched victory when Alan Nils scored a spectacular header. And the 2-0 victory certainly gave the Halifax fans a ray of hope.
I know what a lot of hard work can do, and I've seen clubs in similar situations to ours get out of it and go on to be successful. The biggest danger to me is that this is little Halifax with 1,600 people behind you. It's not the Swanseas and the Bristol Cities and the Middlesbroughs and the Derby Counties and all the big clubs who have been in the position as we are at this moment in time. So we're going to need help to get ourselves out of the min.
If proposals go ahead, Halifax will play their remaining games at another ground, possibly Thrum Hall. If the plan fails, Halifax Town may fold. Bill Hanrahan was at the Shay last night.
Halifax Town have a reputation for hospitality, but popular as the club might be within the league, it struggles for supporters. Debts stand at £300,000 and the taxman wants £76,000 immediately. The ground has suffered over the years. The team has done little better. Halifax are currently 5th bottom in the 4th division. To their die-hard fans, though, empty terraces are a mystery and extinction beyond belief.
I don't know, I've got every game home and away. I've done for years now, and it just puzzles me. I don't know what they're missing.
Every town needs a football team. They can't just pack in like that. And the whole town's behind them now. Should be a good crowd tonight.
Well, it's a team, when you're doing so bad, that needs the support. I mean, anybody can support a winning team.
Crowds remain very low. Last night, only 1,400 stood on the vast Shay terraces, above the season's average. While they keep coming, the club chairman, John Madeley, refuses to give up.
I am hard at work with a major survival package, and I'd like to see the club survive and then, of course, succeed. But it could be the last game played at the Shay tonight.
Exeter had lost only once before last night, but a goalkeeping error gave Neil Matthews the chance to put Town in the lead. At half-time, a grateful chairman thanked the people he thinks count the most.
They're very, very loyal supporters, and let's face it, over the past few years they've not had a lot to cheer about. But if this club does survive, it will succeed, because this squad and the management team and coaching people that we have here are second to no one in the 4th division, and this club will climb out of the danger zone.
There was a party mood at the ground last night. It could be the last chance to celebrate. Alan Nil put the side safely in the lead to send the supporters home happy. A performance which impressed Halifax manager Mick Jones, who sympathises with players who have more than the game on their mind.
It's very, very difficult to turn up week in and week out and be concerned if you've got a mortgage to pay, whether you're going to get paid or not. It doesn't concern me too much, but it certainly must concern the players. And I think if they are concerned about their futures and their wages, tonight's performance didn't suggest it. There's a lot of people battling here, a lot of people working hard, but I know with all the battling and all the work hard going on, we won't survive without a bit of help.
Meetings have been going on all day to organise the Halifax Town rescue package, but the situation is complicated. Calderdale Council owns the Shay, so they have to be involved in negotiations. If they don't want to sell, this lush turf may have been used for a league match for the last time. The council judgment is a severe setback to the club. Directors were hopeful that a deal would go through. The sticking point is who owns the freehold. The council will allow development of the Shay, but only if the ratepayers keep ultimate control. Huddersfield solicitor Margaret Riley is chairman of the committee which turned down the applications. She feels the council's position is reasonable.
The council has been trying to assist the club over recent times in that the club does owe the council a fairly substantial amount of money. We've agreed not to call the loan in and to defer interest payments, so we've already been doing quite a lot. We're still saying to anybody who is interested in coming in to rescue the club that we are still more than happy to talk. Now, whether or not there is interest, I do not know, but the council still hasn't closed the doors and is still prepared to talk to anybody who has any plans to put forward.
The club must now take its begging bowl elsewhere. One representative is now doubtful a buyer can be found by Friday's deadline. It's then creditors will want to hear what the club has done to find the money they are owed.
at any time up to that meeting, one of the creditors could petition to wind the club up, and that would finish the club. The sticking point at the moment seems to be one developer requires the freehold of the site, and the local authority are not prepared to part with it.
Do you think the club might actually fold on Friday?
It's very difficult to say. It may be that will be the case.
And so, once again, dire warnings of impending doom for Halifax Town. The club insists it's not crying wolf. This Friday is the latest deadline. Should a buyer not be found by then, Friday evening's game against Orient may not go ahead.
Well, let's hope the win tonight at any rate.
The first involved shareholders who were told that an unnamed developer had stepped in with a multi-million-pound offer to make the Shay into a sports complex where Halifax Town could continue to play. The businessman would receive 182,000 of the club's shares so far unissued. But if he can't make money within 5 to 10 years, he'd want the local council to grant him the freehold of the site for a completely new redevelopment. But the group revealed that at the moment Calderdale Council aren't prepared to give that assurance.
There are obviously in this position some very difficult sequence of events to try and overcome.
I'd like to think that we could get round the problem. There could possibly be difficulties with the council, but my hope is that I can talk the man who wants to get involved with Halifax Town into doing the deal to run it as a football club on the current lease.
Does this man want to run it as a club and make a success of it as a club, or does he just want to develop shops or commercial?
He wants Halifax Town to be a First Division football club within 6 years.
This afternoon, creditors were told that any move to put the club into liquidation would scupper the deal, but some asked for more information.
Nobody has suggested or told us how the creditors are going to be paid, if they're going to be paid. What you are asking of the creditors, which I feel is very fair, is how will you please wait to see whether this white knight will come in. If it's a good deal, he'll play around for 5 years. If it isn't, he'll get his money out.
And if at the end of the day this football club survives, that's all that matters. And if you don't back it, there's no alternative, and the club goes out of existence, and there's nobody in this room and in this town wants that to happen.
A decision was made to adjourn for 3 weeks to allow negotiations over the proposed plan to continue. Meanwhile, games, including tonight's match against Orient, will go ahead at the Shay for the time being.
Assembled today to hear the latest chapter in the long-running Halifax Town story.
We would also subsequently require formal planning approval.
Representatives from Marshall's construction company outlined their plans to build a supermarket on the present ground and build a new stadium elsewhere. The council's refusal for planning permission for the store has already deterred 2 developers. Today's proposals for a new £2 million stadium include plans for a 3,000-seater stand. Councillors have refused to allow any development at the Shay, which rules out leisure activities. But Marshalls now hope their offer will lead to an about turn.
Obviously, we would like to see them accept the proposal. We've been trying to get them to accept the proposal for several weeks now.
But they've made it quite clear they don't want a supermarket on the site of the Shay.
They raised, or I am informed they have raised, 4 major objections, and we hope that the letter we sent today and the proposals we have put forward today serve to answer those 4 objections.
Marshals say a council rejection will mean they pull out. The new stadium, if it's built, will be at the Northbridge Leisure Centre on waste ground near the Shay. The club is optimistic. They think the plan's a good one.
If the ratepayers didn't accept it was a good idea to build a supermarket on the Shay, the supermarket wouldn't be successful. But as a retailer, I think it is an excellent site, and whoever supermarket group went there would be very successful.
Now, you're obviously, and you said during the press conference, excited by this new proposal. Should the council turn it down, will that be the end?
I would say that this is our 3rd major scheme put forward to Calderdale Council, and if they do turn this one down, I would say that the administrator will call a halt to the affairs of Halifax Town, but I do not think the council will turn it down.
The crucial meeting of councillors is on March the 18th. If the supermarket plans are rejected, the club insists it will close. If they're allowed, a new stadium will be built. Either way, football at the Shay is over.
The Shall Fund has been set up to help save Halifax Town. If we can get more money into that, on Monday we can go to the administrator and say, look what we've done in 3 days. Please save Halifax Town.
So the fight to save Halifax and the best squad they've had in years goes on.
Goals, like money, have been hard to come by for Halifax Town, and now the shortage of both looks certain to deny the club's fans professional football. Chairman John Madeley's latest plan to save the club has been scuppered by the council.
The local authorities have absolutely stuck fast and totally refused to part with the freehold.
Last night, councillors in Calderdale rejected the proposal for a supermarket on the site of Halifax's home at the Shay. A local building firm had offered to build a new ground for the club and write off its debts, but the council say the town doesn't need another supermarket. John Madeley spent the morning considering his resignation. He even phoned Brian Clough to try to stop one of his players being sold.
I'm getting very, very close. I'm under severe pressure. The chances are that my resignation might hit the court administrator very, very quickly. And I want to set, if anything's set in motion, I want to make sure that Mick Jones honours Brian's verbal agreement. Well, I don't want to sell my players, but I mean, I've done everything that I can, and I know you want the player being sold, and I have no alternative really. I've set the deal up. I'm going to ring Billy now, or Carol, and say that that is the deal, that is the arrangement, and if he goes, I'm sorry, but I go. Oh, it's John Madeley again, love. Is Robert Maxwell available yet? He can try me, but I mean, I'll have to try and get back to you later on in the day, that's all. No, it's all right. Can't be helped. I accept that he's a busy man too. OK, thanks. Bye-bye.
The Madeleys aren't used to failure. John is a successful businessman. Brother Paul, a former international footballer. So how is the chairman coping with failure?
And it's very difficult having a cap of success through the Madeley organisation and then a cap of failure through Halifax Town. But it has been a grim struggle since day one, and when I went into Halifax Town I knew the desperate situation they were in, and I knew it was going to be a grim struggle, and I'm doing everything in my power to try and give it a lifeline.
Put your money where your mouth is. Would you be chairman of the football club this time next week?
If a lifeline is put forward and no players have to be sold, I will remain.
And what do you think the likelihood of that is?
95% against.
Oh, good ball to Pendlebury, to Edie. The gap's there. And there's the try. Copybook play by this Australian fullback, Graham Edie.
2 years ago, people would have laughed you out of town if you said Halifax would thrash Hulkingston Rovers in the quarter-final of the Challenge Cup. To most people, mention the name Halifax and they associate it with the biggest building society in the country and interest rates. But now it's an interest in sport which is capturing the imagination again. The rugby league side haven't been to Wembley since 1956. 2 years before that, they took part in this amazing replay against Warrington at Odsal, a game they lost. 102,000 got in, some say it was nearer 150,000. Two men have helped spearhead Halifax's resurgence in the last 2 years. David Brooke is the club president, and it was to his and the board's credit that they saw in Australian Chris Anderson the man to transform Halifax's fortunes. The Australian connection is important to Halifax, and Hull KR found that out to their cost in the last round.
Oh, there's a chance here for Nella. Oh, that was a good tackle. Still going. Is he in? Yes, he is. Good try from skipper there, Chris Anderson, sent away, but they're congratulating that lad, Keith Nella.
Well, the priorities, of course, are winning matches. This is a team which is hungry for success, and a town that's hungry for success, and a winning team gives it that success and gives it that uplift.
And that was proved last season when they won the championship in this draw against Featherstone Rovers. The first time for 83 years they'd won the First Division. It's a remarkable turnaround for a club which only a few years ago was itself facing liquidation. In 1978, the club was bottom of Division 2. Its crowds were around 700, no one seemed to care, and they owed £80,000. Halifax Rugby League seemed dead. But at the end of last season, the town of Halifax had at last something to cheer about. A civic reception, the championship trophy, and a team capable of beating anyone on their day. This perhaps was just the start of David Brooks' 5-year plan, even if some people thought their success would only last 1 year. This year, Halifax RL are handed a place for the playoffs at the end of the season. Sadly, their neighbours down the hill, Halifax Town, are in 87th place in the league. Halifax Town was founded in 1911, and they've never been higher than the 3rd Division. There have been good times, like in the 50s, when nearly 37,000 packed in to see them play Spurs, and they once claimed 3 First Division scalps in one season. Their biggest day was in 1980, when they knocked out Manchester City from the FA Cup, but Cup success since then has been a rare commodity. Surviving re-election 12 times has taken its toll on the terraces. During the 80s, survival for Halifax has been a long, hard road. They've never known anything else.
The total gate receipts, 1,494.75. We take away Scunthorpe 600, we are left with £894.
Sadly, it's not that much better today. For many years, Halifax Town have been DIY amateurs in survival. John Madeley is an expert. He's appealed to the fans in a unique way, but is it the kind of thing a chairman should do?
I don't suppose it is really, but I mean, we have to start at the bottom, and they were terribly, terribly in debt. And paint in the ground, it hadn't seen paint around the perimeter for a long, long time, so we decided to have a go at that, and I made an appeal, and the public came along and all helped. And I think that's just getting your coat off and getting stuck in. But horrendous problems, and they soon came to light.
The club owes £400,000, so the Shay, which is owned by the council, has to be redeveloped. Various ideas were put forward. Halifax even tried to join in with the Rugby League boys at Thrum Hall, but tradition and bylaws put paid to that.
Well, it's always been a rugby league town, and let's be honest about it, the image of soccer in recent years is not good, and even in a small crowd at the Shay, there is an undesirable element, if you like, which frankly we don't get here. The general environment of Thrum Hall, which is a sort of family ground, if you like, humble though it is, all these things and other factors too were against the merger.
I don't feel any animosity towards Mr. Brooke and the Rugby Club. I think they're a tremendous outfit, and they've made their decision. I wish them every success.
No one's denying that Saturday's game against Widnes in the semi-finals is the club's biggest for years. In the context of what's happening to sport in Halifax, it could even be the most significant ever. Against Hull Kingston Rovers, Halifax showed that they are a fine team. What's happened at Thrum Hall in the last few years could even give hope for the future of the soccer club as well. No one gives more to a club than John Madeley, and its future until the end of the season at least is assured. A local group has rallied round. But ultimately, this man, Robert Maxwell, may play a big role in its long-term survival. He's already helped Oxford and Derby. John Madeley meets Maxwell tomorrow.
I don't know if Mr. Maxwell will have interest or not, but the man has been kind enough to make the arrangements to see me, and until after the meeting I really can't give you the answers, Harry.
So life goes on at the Shay, but only just, and had it not been for the chairman, Halifax would have been by now dead and buried.
As far as I'm concerned, Halifax has got 3 things. It's got a football club, it's got a rugby club, and it's got a building society. And I think that the town of Halifax needs football. There's only 92 clubs, and we're one of them. That is some achievement. We can only go forward if we can survive.
There have been a host of plans for saving Halifax. The rescue team feel that if the price is right, selling the 120-year lease could solve their problems. Halifax has debts of around £450,000, but some creditors have said they'll settle for less if it means the club staying in business. Numerous rescue plans in the past have failed because Calderdale Council has refused planning permission. The main scheme would have involved building a supermarket on the ground and moving the stadium to a site nearby, but council opposition scuppered that deal. The man appointed from the accountants assigned to run the club's affairs says tonight's extraordinary meeting at Calderdale Council is vital.
It's important to the fact that we've not sufficient cash to pay wages tomorrow, so unless something happens tonight, then I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. I would imagine that we shall have to close.
The idea is for the council to actually buy the lease of the ground. What good will that do the club?
Well, the council own the freehold. They've expressed a desire to buy back the lease. it all depends on how much they're prepared to pay for that lease. If they're prepared to pay sufficient for us then to be able to satisfy our creditors, then football can continue. If they're not prepared to pay sufficient for us to enable us to do that, then once again football will cease. So it's critical, not only the decision they make tonight, but how much they're prepared to pay for the lease.
In other words, you're letting the council take over this club and asking for a cash handout from the council in return.
Well, I think it's true to say that the decision always should have been made by the people of Col.